Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome and happy Sabbath. Today is the 11th day of the 11th month according to the pagans, but according to the Hebrew Israelite calendar, which we're going to share, today is the 29th day of Bull, or the 11th day of the 11th month according to the pagans, and it is a Sabbath. So welcome and happy Sabbath. And we will continue with our series proving that Sub-Saharan Africa is Israel. So this is the topic of today's lesson. Native Sub-Saharan Africa are the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And we'll continue with this series to prove it. And I encourage everybody to do your own research. Do some serious research. And you will find that this is so because the enemy has made every effort to hide Israel. They've made every effort to hide Israel, to hide who we are as a people. And that reminds me of the Psalm 83 conspiracy, right? Where that all of these nations, Psalm 83, never forget this, that all these nations here, that they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. Who's thy people? The Israelites. And they have consulted against thy hidden ones. And let us bear this in mind as we do this lesson and through this series, the hidden ones. Why is the scripture making reference to Israel as the hidden ones? And in verse 6, it tells us, in verse 5, it says, for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. Who are they confederate against? The Lord, Yahweh. Who are the people that's doing it? All the nations. The tabernacle of Edom is the first one. That's the who we call the white people. Edom, the Edomites. The Ishmaelites, who are the Arabs. Moab, the Chinese. The Hagarenes, who are Hamitic people. Right? Gibal, who are Hamitic people. Ammon, who are the Japanese. Amalek, the head tribe of Edom. And the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. All these here are the Canaanites that the scripture talk about. These are the people that we removed out of the land of Palestine when we were there. We were subsequently exiled from that land. These people are our enemies. Ashur, who is the Assyrians, has joined with them. So all the nations on the earth have made a conspiracy. And the Lord in the last day is pulling back the veil and is revealing his people, because the scripture says that where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, it will be said that ye are the sons of the living God. Okay, and with that, let's get to the scriptures. Genesis chapter 9. Well, let's go to chapter 10. The sons of Ham, the Hamites, that they are claiming that we are Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. And we're going to go to Jubilees. We're going to read Jubilees chapter 9 and verse 1. It says, and Ham divided amongst his son, and the first portion came forth for Cush towards the east. Okay, and we're going to look at what that map looked like. And I hope we can see this map. And it says that the first portion went to Cush. Now, Cush is Ethiopia, and this is it, all right? And we're looking at the map, the way the map was during the times of the Bible. During all the history of the Bible, this is what the map looked like. And all the people were identified in the scriptures. So, this is Cush, and it says towards the east, okay? And to the west of him, Mizraim. Let's look. So to the west, this is the west. To the west of Cush is Egypt. Mizraim is Egypt. Okay? And to the west of him, Put. So to the west of Egypt is Put, and Put is Libya. Put is Libya. And to the west of him, which is to the west of Put, and to the west thereof on the sea for Canaan. So this is where Canaan is supposed to have been. But we know that Canaan went and took the land of Palestine, which is the land of Lebanon, that God promised to the Israelites. So the Canaanites never ended up here, but they ended up on Palestine, in the land that was given to Shem. And that's the reason why when the Lord took us out of Egypt, we had to go take that land, because that's our land, right? And remember that they had joined themselves to an oath that anybody that takes the land of someone else would face judgment. So that's what happened to the Canaanites. And remember, family, we did not completely annihilate them, but we left them in the land, and they dwelt among us. The Canaanites dwelt among us in the land. And we were subsequently driven out of the land. Okay? But in all of the history of the Bible, and remember that the Bible identified all nations from the beginning, from the flood. All nations were identified in the scriptures. And we know that in Africa, there was Put, Lydia, Libya, Egypt, and Ethiopia. And there were no other nations mentioned in the Bible south of these. So the question has to be, who are the people today that occupy the Sub-Saharan Africa? And that's what we're going to prove. Genesis chapter 9. Genesis chapter 9, let's just read it quickly. Genesis 9 and verses 18 and 19. It says that the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. So there's nobody on the earth today that did not come from these three. And from early as after the flood, the scriptures recorded the history of all nations. All nations. So the question is, who are the people there today, seeing that those people were never mentioned in the scriptures before? Now, the Israelites were, after many years, exiled. And we're talking about the northern kingdom of Israel, were exiled into Assyria. And there was a war between Assyria and Babylon. And after that war ended, the 10 tribes could not be found. In fact, they claimed that the 10 tribes could not be found. But we believe that they knew the 10 tribes, they knew where they were, and they hid it. And that's the reason these were mentioned and referred to as the hidden ones, the hidden ones. Okay? Now, I've also received questions on the comment board of the previous videos, and people are asking if the Bantu people are Israel, because they are Sub-Saharan, Bantu people. And I want to talk a little bit about that today, and to put some perspective on it. And again, like I said, what I'm going to talk about here is not everything that can be said. It's not everything that can be said, but the main points. So I did some research on the Bantu people. And it's interesting what I found. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this Britannica online, and it talks about the Bantu people. The Bantu peoples, in plural, peoples, the approximately 85 million speakers of more than 500 distinct languages of the Bantu subgroup of Niger, Congo language family, occupying almost the entire southern projection of the African continent. Stop. Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at what they just described. This is Africa. And remember, we just talked about these countries that were occupied during the Bible time that we know to the north, but to the sub-Sahara, because this is where the Sahara is, there were no mention of anybody. They are now saying, after what we just read, that the Bantu people occupy, it says they're occupying almost the entire southern projection of the African continent. They're saying that the Bantu people occupy all of this here. All of this from the Sahara, sub-Sahara, all the way down to the tip of Africa. And the question is, who are these Bantu people? Now, it is interesting to note that the Bantu is described as a language. They say it's about 85 million people speaking about 500 distinct languages, and they refer to the language as the Bantu language. So I first want to point out that the enemy has always given the Israelites a byword. The true Israel that the scripture talks about were given bywords. In fact, the byword is one of the curses. The scripture says that we shall be a byword and a proverb to all the nations on the earth. And a byword is a name that is given to you that's not your name. And I find it interesting that they have decided to name all these people Bantu. And I was curious to see what is Bantu, because Bantu is not a nationality. It is not even ethnicity. It is a linguistic terminology that is used to describe all these people. All right, and we're going to look at it, and we're going to see who these people really are. If we go to, and I'm going to come back to this page. If we go to Wikipedia, all right, and we look up for the Limba people, we will see that the Limba people occupy, I know this tells us that they are an ethnic group. Remember, before it says the Bantu people as a linguistic term. Let's read it. It says the Bantu people are an ethno-linguistic grouping of approximately 400 distinct native ethnic groups who speak the Bantu languages. So when you read that sentence, you don't know who these people really are. You don't know if they're Hamites, if they are Shemites, or if they're Japhetites. You don't know whether they are Israelites, Moabites, or any of the nations written in the Bible that we can identify. They don't identify them by their ethnicity, by their ancestral ethnicity. They're not identified as such. And this was done on purpose. You really have to dig to know who these people are. So my response to the people who ask me about the Bantu people It's to first understand that that's not an ethnicity. It's an ethno-linguistic term that is used to describe you without saying who you are. It's like saying the black people or the African American people or the African people. It doesn't tell you who you are. Now, if you would say the Egyptians, you would know that they're talking about Africans from Egypt, and these are the Egyptians, and so on. Okay, but they don't do that. They say it's an ethno-linguistic term. And it says that the languages are native, and we need to pay attention to this word native, native. Why? Because it means that these people are the original people. That's what that word means. Now, if Africa is empty, if Sub-Saharan Africa, this projection, the southern projection, is empty during the Bible history, then these people that they say are native must have been the first ones to live there. So it says that these languages are native to 24 countries spread over a vast area from Central Africa to Southeast Africa and into South Africa. Just what we described. This entire area of Africa is Bantu. Is Bantu. And they go on, it goes on to say that depending on the definition of language or dialect, it is estimated that there are between 440 or 680 different distinct languages. Now, do you know what they mean by a distinct language? It's a variation. So us, for example, who are from the Caribbean, we have different dialects that we speak. They would make each of those dialects a language. So those of us who are in the eastern part of the country, we would say certain things a certain way. And the people in the western part of the same country, who are the same people, would say the same thing differently. And they would divide us into different categories based on the use of the dialect, even though we are the same people. This is what they've done with these people called Bantu. They've divided them up into 440 different distinct groups and identify them by their language. By the language, not by their ethnicity, not by their ancestral ethnicity. That's not done. Okay, so you can go ahead and read the rest of this statistic. I'm not going to go through that. But the larger of the individual Bantu groups have populations of several millions. For example, family, pay attention. For example, Rwanda, Burundi, Baganda, Uganda, Shona, Zimbabwe, the Zulu of South Africa, right? The Democratic Republic, of Congo, Tanzania, Kenya, and all of South Africa. These are the Bantu people. So the people who occupy this section of Africa, in fact, let me show you the map now populated, and you will see that the people that were there in the Bible days of the Hamitic descent, right? Lud, Put, Mizraim, and Cush are still there today. And the portion of Africa that was never occupied, Sub-Sahara, they are telling us that all these people here are of the same ethnic group. but they did not tell us who they are. They refer to them in a linguistic manner. And I want us to go ahead and take a look at this before I move on. I want us to take a look at this before I move on. Sorry, okay, here. We're going to look at the etymology of the word Bantu. What is the etymology? The root meaning, where the word came from. Why did they call these people Bantu? And I find it also very interesting, you know, family, very interesting, that for some reason they were able to make all these people call themselves after this term. How did they get these people to refer to themselves as Bantu? So much so that people are asking me on the comment board, who are the Bantu people? Are the Bantu people Israel? So they're referring to themselves as Bantu, not realizing that it is a byword that was given to them, and it is an ethno-linguistic term. It does not mean that it's your ancestry. It doesn't, you know, if a Chinese is speaking Bantu, he is a Bantu. So it does not identify them in their ancestral heritage. It does not identify them in their ancestry. Okay, and this is very important. All right, so let us read. Let us read. We're going to start right here. It says, in linguistics, the word Bantu for the language families and its speakers. See, so they're not telling you who you are by your ancestry or your ethnic ancestry. It's not doing that. It's calling you a language. It says it's an artificial term used on the reconstructed pro-Bantu term for people or humans. So this is what they're calling you. The humans, the people, without telling you who you are. It goes on to say that it was first introduced. This is the first time the word Bantu was used to describe these people. It was used, in modern academia as Bantu by Wilhelm Bleek in 1857. So, from God made Adam until 1857, there was no people called Bantu. There was no people called Bantu. Because in the scriptures, we know all the nations and their names. And this guy, Wilhelm Bleek, in 1857, coined the phrase to refer to all the people of Sub-Saharan Africa, who they have divided up into linguistic segments of 440. Now, if you want to hide a people and you want to confuse a people and you want to take away from a people who they are, this is a great way to do it. And I don't know what was the mechanism that they used to re-educate our people to make them believe that their names are Bantu. And after calling them Bantu, then they gave them other names like Zimbabwe and Malawi and Uganda and the rest of the names, right? So they have actually accomplished Psalm 83 to take away the memory of Israel from the Israelites. But we're going to identify who those people are. So this man, Mr. Bleek, is the one that came up with this word. And he said the name was said to be coined to represent the word or people in a loosely reconstructed pro-Bantu. You know, when they say loosely reconstructed, you know, it means that it doesn't really mean what they say it means. They make up two words and put them together that don't really mean that. And then they may use that phrase to express the byword that they want to call you. All right. It says there is no native term for the people who speak Bantu language. You see that? They do not have a native term for you. That means you're not an Egyptian, you're not, an Ethiopian, you're not an Israelite. The word Bantu does not describe you as a native ethnicity because they are not an ethnic group. You see that? Bantu is not an ethnicity. It's not an ethnic group. It's a linguistic term used to describe you. It says people speaking Bantu languages refer to their languages by ethnic endonyms, which did not have an indigenous concept prior to the Europeans' contact for a larger ethno-linguistic phylum named by 19th century European linguistic. So they did not call themselves Bantu until this man, Mr. Bleeks, referred to them as that. Now, what did the people call themselves? This is what the people call themselves. It says that so he coined the phrase, and he says the phrase was inspired by an polyglot observation of groups self-identifying as people or the true people. So these people used to refer to themselves as the true people. And when Mr. Bleeks came in contact with these people, he's a European anthropologist. He coined the phrase loosely to refer to them as Bantu, but they were calling themselves the true people. Now, I'm sure I can see why. Because the Israelites would refer to themselves as the true people. And this gentleman decides to call them Bantu. And the question is, how did the Bantu people become native to all of Africa that was not populated during Bible days? Who are these people? Now, we have to tie the pieces together, right? So let's go to, I was doing a search on the Limba people. As you can see, I have the Limba search here as well. And this is, I searched this in Wikipedia. And it talks about the Limba people. And it says the Sena, the Limba, the Ramba, the Menwi are an ethnic group. Now, here is the ethnicity. It says they're an ethnic group. This is how we're going to tie it together, family. They're an ethnic group which is native to South Africa. Now, remember, we just read that they say that the Bantu people are native. So anybody that is a native to Sub-Sahara and this projection of the southern section of Africa has been there first. They are the first people that live there. And that's why they're native. Now they're telling us that these Limba people are native to South Africa, Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. Watch this, of mixed Bantu and Yemeni heritage. So now we're getting closer, right? These Bantu people are the same people that are tied to the Limba people. And who are the Limba people? Who are the Limba people? Because this is how we're going to tie it. This is how we're going to tie it. Well, another search yields this clue. Same thing. Sena, Limba, Ramba, Menue are an ethnic group which is native to South Africa, Malawi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, mixed Bantu and Yemeni heritage. Within South Africa, there are particular concentration of Limpopo, right? They're particularly concentrated in Limpopo, and these other areas. And they are now saying that these people are descent from the Semitic people. What are the Semitic people? The people of Shem. The people of Shem. So what does that mean? Let's go back and look at the map. Let's look at the map. This is the populated map. And they are saying that all them people here, all these people in the southern projection of Africa are Semitic. That means they're not Hamitic. Who are the Hamites? These ones that we read about in the scriptures. Okay, Ethiopia, Egypt, Libya, and Algeria. Lud, Put, Mizraim, and Cush. But they are telling us that the people in Sub-Saharan Africa who are Bantu, who they name after the language, are Semitic people. They are from Shem. They're not from Ham. So family, we can stop right here. And we can clearly say that Sub-Saharan Africa is not Ham, but Shem. And I didn't make it up. I didn't make it up. We just read it, right? We just read it. Right here. They said that scholarly attention with regard to the Limba claiming of common descent from Shemitic people. Now remember, the Limba people stretch from all of South Africa. We said all of Southeast Africa and South Africa to the tip are Bantu. So these people who occupy southern section of Africa are Shemitic. Now, those of us who are in the diaspora, if we came out of West Africa right here, Sub-Saharan West, are you going to tell us that we're Hamites? We who came over on the slave boats are Shemitic. Right? The article just said it. And we're going to go further to prove that not only are we Shemitic, but we are Israel. We're Israel. How do we know that? Let's go back and read some more about these Limba people. Limba people. Now remember, they just said that the Limba people are Bantu. And we know that Bantu occupies all of the sub-Sahara section of Africa. So let's see, what is it about these people? And I'm going to start with, it says the Limba people who are Bantu, that they have customs which are similar to the Jews, to the Israelites. The Limba refrain from eating pork. That's Torah. No, this already tells you that these people are not Hamitic, because the Hamites eat pork. All right. It says, are other foods forbidden by the Torah? So they do not eat unclean food. Or forbidden combination of foods. Okay? It says they wear a yarmulke, which is a skull cap, and they conduct the ritual of animal slaughter. Last time we speak about that, because why are they doing animal slaughter in South Africa? Because remember, these people were taken out of the northern kingdom of Israel in 700 BC. So they're not aware that Christ came. So they're still practicing Torah pre-Christ. Okay. They have a holy day once a week. What day is that? I have a feeling it's the Sabbath. And they even put the Star of David on their gravestones. It says, according to their oral tradition, the Limba are the descendants from 7 Israelite men who left in 2,500 years ago, and they marry African women. That's what they say. It says the Limba prefer their children to marry other Limba. Isn't that Torah? And marriage to non-Limba is being discouraged. Who are these people except they are Israelites? One more thing. It says their sacred prayer language is a mix of what? Hebrew and Arabic. So when they say the Limba family of languages, they're not telling you that these people are speaking Hebrew mix. It says their religious artifact is a replica of the biblical Ark of the Covenant. And I mean, we can stop here. We can stop here. So if the Limba people are Bantu, and Bantu occupies, it says, all of the southern projection of the African continent, then who are these people? Who are these people? And how did they get there? Now, this is how they got there. In 700 BC, the northern kingdom of Israel was taken captive into Assyria. And the scriptures describe how they got to Sub-Saharan Africa. And we're going to read it. 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, and we'll start at verse 40. This is how they got there. And bear in mind, family, that Sub-Saharan Africa was not occupied throughout all of the Bible. But it says that the prophet Ezra had a vision of the last days, and he saw the 10 tribes. And he's asking, who are these people? And the answer was, whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, these are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, who Salmanasar, king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them away over the waters, and so came they into another land. So Salmanasar took the 10 tribes into Assyria. That's what this is talking about. But they took counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and would go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelled. What place is that? Here. Here. This is how they become native to Sub-Sahara, because they left the Assyrian captivity during the Babylonian Assyrian war, and they made counsel that they would go into a land where never mankind dwelt, and this is that land where nobody dwelt. Verse 42 says that they may keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. Did we not just read that they perform animal sacrifices? In another place it says circumcision. They keep the feast days. They keep the Sabbath. This is why they do that, because it says that they might keep their statutes, which they never kept when they're in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river, for the Lord Most High then showed them signs, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely a year and a half, and the same region is called Asareth. Verse 46, then dwelt they there until the latter time. So these people are in that land. No. What people? The 10 tribes of Israel. What land is that? Sub-Sahara Africa. Sub-Sahara Africa. These are the 10 tribes. And by the way, you know, in the next lesson, we're going to talk about why is it that the continent is chopped up into different countries looking like this, because that's not how it looked. Pre-colonization, this is not how it looked. It is the colonizers that chopped it up and give a little part to Nigeria and a little part to Cameroon and a little part to Congo. And by the way, they're the ones naming it. The colonizers named these lands: Kenya, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Angola, Mozambique, right? There's Mozambique, Zambia, Botswana, Namibia, and all of South Africa. All these places were named by the colonizers, but these places were occupied by the 10 tribes of Israel. That's how they got there. That's how they became natives. And in order to hide who they are, the colonizers called them Bantu. But as you can see, it's a linguistic term that is used to refer to the 10 tribes of the kingdom of Israel. That's who these people are. All right. And I hope that we would have gained something from today's lesson, and we will continue to dig into this deeper. We're going to prove through this series that Sub-Saharan Africa is Ephraim, the northern kingdom. And the purpose also, seeing that we're in the end time, is to wake up Ephraim, because Judah is awake. Judah, which is scattered to the four corners of the earth, is awakened. And the Lord is saying, Judah needs to wake up Ephraim. We're going to look at that next time. All right, and that's the lesson for today, family. Thank you so much for joining us. All praises and all glory and all honor to the Most High, whose name is Yahweh, and His Son, whose name is Yahushai. And until next time, shalom, shalom, and shalom.